Welcome everyone today to another AZ Ray video. Today we're going to talk about the history of pets. The history of pets actually coincides with the history of humanity. The humans and hominin versions that we're more used to and accustomed to today started around 8 million years ago or so. And then a crucial thing happened about 3.2 million to around 12,000 years ago during the Pleistocene Era. What was happening in the Africa region was that there was a big change in the geography. The whole area was starting to dry out more and more, which was forcing the humans of those times to look into other different resources. So they had to expand and change their diet. That's what allowed them to transition into eating meat. They were forced to, out of survival, since there was such a heavy competition to try to get plants, which was the main form of food that they consumed at that time. And the way humans were able to do this was through scavenging. You may have heard that early humans were these great hunters, but they were scavengers first, and for a long period of time. And they had to compete with other larger predators. They had to compete against lions, hyenas, and vultures to essentially get what was left over food-wise. Because of their short stature being 3 feet tall, about the same size as vultures, other animals, which were animals that they competed against, they had to be very tactful, right? They couldn't just hunt them straight on at that point. They had to wait until they were done eating and no animals were there to provide them a threat. So they just scavenged on whatever was left over, which most of the time was some kind of like liver or other smaller intestines and things like that. But as this kept happening more and more, they got forced to eat the meat on the bones. But that's not an easy feat. It's actually really hard to break bones. And that would eventually lead to the development of Oldowan Tools and stones that were formed and shaped to essentially start breaking those bones so they could eat them, right? And so you might be thinking, why are you telling me all this about human history, right? So on that latter part of that Pleistocene era that I'm talking to you about, from the 12,000 years ago, something happened. And in the 15,000 to 10,000 years ago is the big time where pets were introduced to us. That's about 15,000 years ago, we were exposed to dogs, and 10,000 years ago, we were exposed to cats. And those different relationships formed. They were always there, but 15,000 and 10,000 were like the beginning of like a strong peak and relationships that were formed with these animals, right? And that's why I gave you the scavenger story, because that became part of the relationship of how we quote unquote met each other, right? As you may notice those features in your pets already, they kind of naturally scavenge as well, right? And the other thing that was also happening 15,000 and 12,000 years ago is that we see the beginnings of civilizations, and people were starting to become more sedentary. So that would present different situations that they had to overcome, right? Cats were commonly used to hunt rats and things that would happen in barns as people were trying to form agriculture and farm in various civilizations. So these relationships became very beneficial to the owner and to the pet. And so how those relationships were formed is actually quite fascinating. A lot of it actually has to do with the gaze. So when a dog looks at you, it's actually forming a decision whether it should interact with you, not interact with you, and ask you for food or build some kind of relationship. They're very focused on the eyes and on the gaze. Cats are a little different. Yes, they focus on the gaze, but they're more centered on head movements. When it comes to head movements, they're focusing if like the head movement is proper or not. Especially since if cats are focusing on a gaze, they think it's more centered around a potential threat. It seems like the kitty realized that we were talking about cats and she wanted to be included in the video, you know? That had to be the reason, right? And The reason why cats are also very crucial to this, of course dogs are as well, but the thing that's very important to understand is that cats are some of the best hunters at that time. When you compare them to like dogs or various hawks, condors, or falcons, or eagles, cats are often more effective at hunting in comparison to dogs. So they were a great asset, and the existence of both of them together helped us very well with the addition of dogs and cats. And the relationship between cats and dogs were connected to our transition into farming, agriculture, and becoming hunter and gatherers. Essentially, this history of pets is our history, which is very fascinating, right? Probably makes you reimagine the way you see your cat, your dog, or whatever other pet you may have. Hamster, lizard. Yeah, it's quite interesting. Although we may not be hunting and gathering as much as we used to, unless you use your pets for hunting, which is super cool if you do, by the way. But you still have that connection that you form, right? Whether it's through gaze or non-gaze. Bonds are definitely formed, right? And it's very fascinating too, because another point, bonds are also formed because they can perceive the way you're feeling in your emotional state. And that definitely affects how cats and dogs interact with you. And they can even form images through sounds, and through those sound waves they make decisions on whether it's safe to be around you, to encounter you, or if you need comfort or if you don't need comfort. Just quite fascinating the way they can perceive things, and how their heightened senses gives them a different way of understanding the world around them. So yeah, be thankful for your little pets, and if you don't like pets, that's fine too. Thank you for enjoying this video. I hope you got some value from it. And for our next video, we're going to dive into hostile architecture and material trauma. So it's going to be more like the anthropology of cities and how cities affect the world around us, right? And I'm going to have an emphasis on walls for this particular one, various borders in different countries. So stay tuned for that video, which will be coming out after this one. Thank you so much for taking the time to look at this video and to check it out. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Tell your mama, tell your brother, tell your sister, tell your mister, tell whoever. Spread the word for this community and for this channel. And thank you again. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for checking out another AZ Ray video.